All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to call to order the Board of Equalization meeting for Monday, April 15th, 2024. If we could have roll call, please, Maureen.
Weigel.
Here.
Osowski. Here. Weber. Brett, can you hear me? We'll move on. Linsky. Here. Kavami.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
And Bean.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Item 1.2, consider protest recommendations from the city assessor. So Ms. Lazur, if you can go over these, and since we've got agreements, I think we'll just take them all as one bunch and vote on them together, but why don't you go through each property?
Sure. First property on the agenda is 3510 7th Avenue North. This property was part of our reappraisal area this past summer. We did an exterior inspection at that time, and with the protest or the appeal, we were able to inspect the inside. Inside is lesser condition than what we anticipated and saw on the outside. So reducing the value based on our inspection and our information is warranted. I would recommend that we lower it from $234,000 to $207,000 for that property. I did provide you with the comps to support our reconsidered value as well. 820 North 6th Street is a three-family conversion property. Here again, our exterior told us something different than what we saw on the inside. When we were on the inside, we noted pet damage, odor, minimal cabinets in a third unit upstairs, weathered wood siding. It just wasn't what we anticipated when we reviewed it from the exterior. So we would recommend reducing that property from $215,000 to $199,000. Again, I included our comps to support that value. The last property at 749 South 30th Street, Parkwood Place. This property is transitioning from independent basic care facility to a 55 and older community property. It's going through that transition. When I reviewed the income statements, they are at a 50% vacancy. They are operating under a significant net in the red operating income. Considering the income approach to this property, since I don't have any sales that are real supportive, that provide us with any help, I do recommend that we lower that property from $8,573,000, to $7,469,000. Any questions on any of them?
Thank you. Any questions to Ms. Lazur? I guess if you go ahead, President Sandy.
A quick question on the third property.
Yeah.
What did you hear back? Have you discussed your findings with the owner?
Yes, I have considered, this was a tax rep that contacted us who has a letter of authorization to appeal this property on their behalf, and I have recommended to them or informed them of my recommendation to you, and they were in agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other, if we got a motion to approve the recommended.
Second.
All right, so that's a motion to approve the recommendations from the city assessor. We got a motion, President Sandy, second from Ms.
For A,
Osowski.
B, and C. Mayor.
Yes, for items A, B, and C.
1.2.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And 1.3, certified 2024 annual assessments to the county auditor.
All right, thank you. We'd just be looking for a motion then to approve the assessments. Got a motion approved from President Sandy, second from Ms. Lunsky. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And 1.4 is the annual report. This is information only.
All right, we have received it. Thank you. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Well, I have a question on the report. Can I ask?
Sure, yeah, you want to, you got a question?
Maybe just a comment. Like I'm just kind of glancing at it. And so, when I'm on page 4, and I'm looking at the 2023 city taxes, I guess I have a hard time as a citizen, you know, when I bought my house 4 years ago and then you guys come around and jack up the value on it because I really haven't done anything. Even when you guys came, there was siding that was torn off my house because of a windstorm that we had that knocked down some power lines. And so I'm just wondering, like, even looking at this graph, like, why are our taxes so much higher than Fargo's? And we sit here and we talk about how we want to grow our community and everything, but, I mean, people aren't going to want to live here if we keep, and I know you say that you're doing, I know nothing about taxes, so let's put that out there, and you say that you are doing the lawful right thing, but I'm just wondering why theirs are so much lower. I mean, and I don't understand that. Can you, like, give us kind of like a dumbed down version of why our taxes are so much higher than Fargo's?
I can maybe touch on that to begin with. In Fargo, you've got a lot of property value in their city, like downtown area. When you have more owners of property, that spreads out the cost for the schools, for the city, for the county, for the park district. When you have less properties, less property value, less growth, your costs aren't going to be spread out as wide as they are in a city like Fargo. You want to add to that, Ms. Lazur?
As I said before, I really try to stay in our lane. We really work on valuing property, and we try to stay out of the tax dollar conversation, even though they do come up in our office when we get phone calls, because that is the main concern for people calling us, is how it impacts their tax dollars. Our value is a component in that equation that computes your tax dollars, but in addition to our value is the mill levy, and that comes from the budgets from city, county, park, state, and the fifth one, I'm sorry, I'm missing. But that's where your tax dollars, in addition to my value, tax dollars are computed by the mill levy and the budgets from all of those taxing jurisdictions.
I think if you go to page 12 too, that's another good comparison on which, the city is, I think 4 years ago we were roughly 31 or 32% of the tax pay. We're down to 27% now, but that gives you a good indication of where tax increases are coming in the community versus which political subdivisions are raising versus which ones are cutting. Obviously, it's a challenge. You're going to get your tax bill is inclusive of all the political subdivisions, so we can work to reduce a mill or 2 mills or 3 mills, but if the school board goes up 30.
I just feel like then Tammy comes around and jacks up my property value. We reduce the mills, and then everybody's home prices goes up. I just have a really hard time with
And my
that.
values are set by sales that have happened in our city. They're set by the sales that happened for '24, what happened in '23. And so we review those sales, every one that comes through, to make sure that they're reflective of our local market. And so we are your value is being reflected by the sales that have happened in the city and in your neighborhood.
I disagree that my house is worth that much more, but that's your opinion, I guess. So, thank you.
Can I add a comment to that?
Yeah.
I'm not speaking for Ms. Storstad, but I asked her this question a few months ago, and I really liked how she explained it, that Fargo has their commercial, or tax base is 60% commercial, and ours is 40%, is that correct?
I think it's
Yeah,
about
that's-
55,
yeah,
55, 45, but
Roughly 60/40, 40/60, so it's inverse Grand Forks to Fargo. So you do have a lot of value coming in a city like Fargo versus us, and I believe that's what the effort's been, to try to get more industrial business, grow that taxable value, that tax base, take some of that burden off the residential. And that is a big difference, I think, between Fargo and Grand Forks, is a lot of that value is coming from the industrial, because that 55, 60% is industrial there versus we're just inverse here, residential to commercial.
I guess it really makes me rethink like some of those pilot programs and people who are getting by like tax-free in our community.
well, you have to understand, you're arguing about money that doesn't exist yet. If they don't come, there's no money at all. So taking 10% of something's better than 100% of nothing. So the way you're going to grow that industrial base is to try to attract industry here. If you don't attract it here, 100% of nothing doesn't really help add to your tax base at all. that's why the city's been so aggressive, because it gives you the chance to flip that, take the burden off of residents, and put it more on business and commercial, particularly in primary sector where you're selling goods and services outside of the city, so your prices aren't raising up. Like, for example, if you had a restaurant that you raise prices there, everyone's going to feel that because you're all, essentially eating there. Any further questions for Ms. Lazur?
I would
President
point
Sam.
out that Ms. Lazur is purely following state law. She's not raising property values because it's fun. She's doing it because we're required to by North Dakota state law. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep, and what was the number? What was the percentage? You had 558 valuations, and was it, I can't remember, 85% or?
We were 87% of our sales, our assessed value was at
Over this-
100%
okay.
and lower. So 13% of 550 some 56 sales were 13% were over that 100%.
So, yeah, so 87% of the sales are for higher than what they've been assessed by the assessing department, and
Yes.
only 13% are more. So I think you're tracking really well, if that's the ratio.
Yep.
So,
And it's not, when you're using medians, it's not a perfect system, but there's nothing that's perfect with mass appraisal. So try to do the best that we can with the numbers that we are working with.
all right, any further questions? Look for a motion to adjourn.
I move
Board of
adjournment.
Equalization. Motion adjourned from Ms. Osowski. Do we have a second from Mr. Kavami? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. All right, welcome. We're going to keep rolling here. Welcome to the Grand Forks City Council meeting for Monday, April 15th, 2024. If we could get a roll call for the City Council, please.
All
Maureen.
right, Weigel.
Here.
Osowski. Here. Weber. Here. Lunsky.
Here.
Kavami.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Veen. All present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mayor's announcements, item 1.3. Several staff member and along with administration myself took a tour of the Ultra Hospital. That's coming along really well. A lot of excitement in the air. I don't want to give away the date of when they're going to accept the first patient, but I think as we get into the new year, it'll be very close to that time of year. One last time, I just want to announce we had the retirement for Meredith Richards last Thursday. She'll be sorely missed. I know staff really gathered up to be able to send her off well. Just last week, we took a tour of Simplot. We're also going to be going out to Simplot's headquarters at the very beginning of May. Thank them for what they're doing in town and to try to hopefully grow more business here and grow more of that industrial land value and grow their plant here in Grand Forks. And then lastly, last week as well, we had the groundbreaking for Valley Middle School. So great to see the school district growing. Obviously, taxes, as we talked about, is important. We've got to find ways to move forward and do it within budgets, but grateful to see that entire neighborhood really came out and is pretty excited to see Valley, essentially a new Valley Middle School and the old one getting raised. So definitely a very positive moment. And then finally, I know we've got the Meehan group here. We had a great Air Service Expansion Committee meeting. They are truly hitting the ground running, so we're pretty excited to roll our sleeves up and to get to work on that. So thank them for being here. In the next couple days, they'll be doing more meetings with businesses and really charging forward. So they're doing all that at risk at this point because we've got to approve the contract this evening. But I guess they're thinking it's going to go through because they're here and in person. So thank you for that. And that's it for Mayor's announcements. So we will move on to awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations.
2.1 is proclamation, Medical Laboratory Professionals Week, April 14th through the 20th.
All right, we've got 3 of them, so I'm going to just read the sort of the end of the proclamation and work through that. I think people have heard enough from me for a little while. So proclamation, Medical Laboratory Professionals Week. Now, therefore, I, Brandon Boczynski, Mayor of the City of Grand Forks, of the great state of North Dakota, do hereby proclaim April 14th to the 20th, 2024 as Medical Laboratory Professionals Week and urge all citizens to recognize and support the vital service provided by the laboratory practitioner for the benefit of all citizens.
And 2.2, proclamation National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, April 14th through the 20th.
Thank you. Now, therefore, I, Brandon Wojcinski, Mayor of Grand Forks, do hereby proclaim April 14th to the 20th, 2024 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. I urge everyone in our community to take time to be in recognition of the men and women of Grand Forks Public Safety Answering Point whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. We got Ms. LaHaye here tonight. Yeah, thank you for what you guys do. Do a great job.
2.3, proclamation National Therapy Animal Day, April 30th.
All right, last one. Therefore, as mayor of the city of Grand Forks, I do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2024 as National Therapy Animal Day in the city of Grand Forks and call on its citizens to support initiatives related to mental health awareness and its importance to a healthy community. And I don't think we have any service animals in here tonight, so I won't get to thank them, but I think that's it for proclamations. We'll move on to item 3, public hearings and second reading of ordinances.
3.1 is a public hearing and second reading of ordinance dedicating right-of-way plat and final approval of plat for Opportunity Park Second Re-subdivision.
All right, we'll go through the same process here for the next 6 items. We're going to start by opening up a public hearing for item 3.1. Anyone here to speak on item 3.1? All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing portion and open up to council for a motion or comment. Motion to approve from Mr. Weigel, second from President Sandy. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
3.2, public hearing and second reading of ordinance amending zoning map relating to Columbia Park West PUD, amendment number 8, located 4200 block of 40th Avenue South.
Thank you. I'll open up the public hearing for item 3.2. Please step up if anyone is here to speak on item 3.2. Seeing no one, public hearing portion is closed. We'll open it up to council. Motion to approve from Mr. Kavami, second from Ms. Lunsky. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
3.3, public hearing and second reading of ordinance relating to annexation of 4 parcels for Opportunity Park Second Re-subdivision.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak on, open the public hearing. Anyone here to speak on item 3.3? All right, public hearing portion is closed. And again, open up to council. Motion to approve from President Sandy, second from Mr. Kavami. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
3.4, public hearing and second reading of ordinance amending zoning map relating to Southern Estates First Edition PUD Amendment Number 17, located 4200 South 19th Street.
All right, I'll open the public hearing portion for item 3.4. Anyone here to speak on item 3.4? Seeing no one, close the public hearing portion and open to council. Motion to approve from Mr. Weigel, second from Mr. Veen. I'll spread it around a little bit. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
3.5, public hearing and second reading of ordinance relating to annexation of Southern Estates First Edition and adjacent area.
All right, we'll open up the public hearing for item 3.5. Anyone here to speak on item 3.5? Seeing no one, public hearing portion is closed and open up to council. Motion to approve from President Sandy, second from Vice President Weber. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. And the last one.
Last one, determination and protest for Project 8790, District 782, reconstruct 10th Avenue South, South 48th to 350 feet west of South 50th Street. No protest received on this.
All right, any further protests? We'll open up the public hearing portion for 3.6. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing portion and open this one up again finally to council. Motion to approve from President Sandy, second from Mr. Kavami. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, that means we got a lot going on. We've got that many public hearings and second readings. We'll move on to item 4, citizen comments as they relate to action items. Any comments?
We have none.
We have none. All right, now we will move on to action items. I believe we want 511 and 512 polled. Was there any other items under action that
510.
council members want polled? 510? I'll just allow you to review any other items. Mr. Weber, was there any items beyond 510, 511, and 512?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No.
All right, so from a consent agenda, we look for a motion to approve items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, 5.13, 5.14, 5.15, and 5.16. Can I get a motion? We got a motion to approve from Ms. Osowski, second from Ms. Lunsky. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. So, Ms. Storstad, we've got 510, 511, and 512, if you want to read into the record.
Sure. Beginning with 510 is the Aviation Consultant Services Agreement.
All right, do we have any further questions? We've got the group here.
I guess, so you had a meeting today with them, with the airport.
Authority,
I
yeah.
didn't, yeah, what did you guys talk about? Did you guys talk about, like, this agreement, or?
Well, largely.
I'm
yeah.
just wondering if it has to do with our agenda item.
Well, the agenda, yeah, I mean, largely this is spells out what the services they're going to provide. They've already began, providing those services, so we're working on a marketing plan for the airport and ultimately moving forward to expand air service through a air service development grant, which they're going to lead the charge on.
So you have your own, like, airport committee, correct, that you're on? And then you're on the airport authority, correct?
It's Mr. Kavami's on the airport authority.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have two separate groups, right? And are they working together to accomplish the same goal?
Yeah, when you're.
Like, how's that partnership go?
Well, the airport authority really is your day-to-day operations of the airport. Obviously, they're a partner on this to try to move forward. When you're trying to grow air service in a community, it's all hands on deck. You got to partner with everybody and tell your story to the airlines. Show them the growth that's coming, show you got a community united. So, the airport authority is a big part of this, certainly helping out with the data side and giving us insights on what's happened in the past. So, largely different roles, but coming together for this piece.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Kavami.
Yeah, the airport authority chair and the director of the airport are both serve on the committee.
Okay.
They're both there today, too, so giving input.
And the airport authority has their own consultant that helps them looking into airport expansion or service expansion as well. And so the new consultant will be working with their consultant also.
So do we need two consultants?
Well,
What's the difference?
largely you have one that's, they're Mead and Hunt, who they use for day-to-day stuff, is gathering data. They also do
Yeah,
construction
they're an
related
engineering
items.
consulting,
Yeah.
construction management company that also helps trying to attract additional air carrier service, but it certainly isn't their area of expertise.
Okay, but this consultant group and the one that the airport authority has, they're going to work together to accomplish the same goal.
Yeah, they're going to save a lot of money by presenting the data and the past history, so this group doesn't have to start from zero. They can
Okay.
start much further along the race. Yeah, save us money.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'll move approval.
We got a motion to approve, so I'm going to just look for a second, then we can go
Second.
further. Second, so we got a motion from Vice President Weber, second from Mr. Kavami. Further discussion, Mr. Kavami.
I was just going to add that Mead and Hunt's primary responsibilities, engineering, design, construction. This is an ancillary thing for them, but they were excited at the prospect of teaming.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mayor, quick question.
Yep, Mr. Weigel.
And this could be for Mr. Phelan or yourself, Mayor. When we look at Grand Forks Airport and we look at Fargo or Bismarck or Minot, is there a difference in structure in how they operate between us and the other cities or like-sized cities in our
I think
state?
the difference is there's an airport authority in Fargo, or Bismarck would be largely I think the city council acts as their authority or is in control of, it would be where their director's more of a department head. Would that be correct,
You are
Mr.
correct,
Phelan?
Mayor Buchansky and Councilmember Weigel. We're structured more like this, Fargo is, with an airport authority, with appointees, similar to what we have here in Grand Forks. The city of Bismarck, they operate probably more like an old school way where they have a department head, if you will, that is in charge of their airport. It's truly a city airport. And also Bismarck, if you look at Bismarck too, also their event center is also operated by a department head too. And so certainly, I think Council President Sandy, I think at the first meeting, former Council President Gershman kind of went over the highlights of how we got to where, I think that transition occurred in the 1980s, where we created an authority and took it out of, the city of Grand Forks' day-to-day operation. So certainly you can go either way. I think the larger the airport you have, probably with the exclusion of the city of Bismarck, the more often you see airport authorities.
And that's part of my question. We talk about air service to the city of Grand Forks, but you look at Bismarck, which is somewhat closer to us in size than Fargo is, but they're offering Allegiant, United, Delta, American Airlines. They have multiple different service carriers, and so and maybe that's why our consultant is here to help us out understand some of this stuff, but how did we get so far behind where every other peer airport is in the state of North Dakota? And do we need to look at a different structure so that we don't get behind again going forward?
I think Councilmember Weigel, I think we have the consultant, we are underperforming, and maybe, Sonia, if you wouldn't mind, just maybe hitting some high points of, where we're performing well, where our gaps are, and what we're going to move forward with. So kind of give some of those highlights.
We'll have you hit the mic button there.
On the right-hand side. Button on the right.
Thank you so much. Thank you, council members. Just very briefly, across the U.S., there's typically 4, but sometimes 5 structures of ownership, like you're talking about. Generally, it's city or county or port authority, like the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Massport in Boston, and then there's airport authority. Finally, there's state-owned. There aren't that many of those left. And there's pluses and minuses to the different ownership structures, but that doesn't sort of dictate, whether there's good commercial air service or not. There's a number of factors as to what dictates that. And one of them is competition, how close are you to the next competing airport? But there's also, how strong is the air service program? How, focused are you on that? What the business is like? Are you a destination? There's a number of factors that go into that. What has happened sort of didn't happen overnight, and so certainly we're going to put together a strategic plan that's going to help very aggressively with this mayor, whose goal is to be aggressive, turn that around. And based on sort of our preliminary work in being here, this is a very aggressive community that's coming together very quickly. And I think when everybody is pointed in the same direction, Fargo needs to look out because we're going to be a strong and mighty force here. And there's a lot of moving parts to what makes a successful air service program work, attracting new service. And we have all those elements that are coming together. So you got to give us a little bit of time, but it's a unified front for sure. And we do have a competitor, but we also have a market that is strong and importantly is growing from everything that, we still have other people to meet. But, 3 years from now, it's sounding like the business landscape is going to be even more developed, which is really key because the airlines that are here make some pretty good money and charge, some good fares. So that's always very compelling for a carrier when they're looking at a market.
Perfect, thank you.
Any further discussion on item 5.10? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
5.11, consultant services for redevelopment of the former water treatment plant site.
All right, do we have any further questions yet, Mr. Kavami?
I'd like to bring a conflict of interest to ask to be recused from participating in this discussion.
511?
This is the same as what happened last week. My firm was part of another firm's submission. I was not involved. The other firm independently withdrew.
Okay, yep, so he's named the conflict. I think last week we did allow him to vote, so at this point, I guess we're looking for a motion to allow Mr. Kavami to vote, and then the council has to decide if they believe he's able to make a proper decision based on that conflict that he's suggested. So We have a motion to
I'll
do
move
such?
we allow Mr. Kavami to vote because
Got it.
I don't believe he
Okay.
has a.
We have a motion from President Sandy, second from Ms. Osowski. Any further discussion? So all those in favor of allowing Mr. Kwame to vote signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Kwame, you are, that motion passes 6-1 with, was it Ms. Osowski? Ms. Osowski dissenting. So you will be required to vote on this item, Mr. Kwame. All right, any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may. Although I apologize, last week I had to leave during the middle of our meeting when we got to the last couple agenda items. I think I was relatively clear that I don't like the RFQ process that we've been utilizing. I think that certainly Mr. Veen eloquently said that sometimes you need to have people with the best expertise. I just fundamentally think we should be taking more stances using RFPs rather than RFQs, because I still find that in many circumstances, we're using RFQs when we're not actually doing things that are unique. When we're building, for example, bike paths, I don't think you need a special engineer or architect to do that. That's just, again, my opinion. So I'm happy to vote on 511 there.
All right, do
I'll
we,
move in favor of staff recommendation.
okay, we got a motion approved. Do we have a second? Got a second from Mr. Veen. So motion from Vice President Weber, second from Mr. Veen, and open up to further discussion. All right, I think we're ready to vote. Ms. Storstad, if you want to do just a roll call vote, why don't you give us a random order?
Sure. All right. Osowski.
Yes.
Lunsky. Yes. Kavami.
No.
Bean. Yes. Weber.
Yes.
Weigel.
Yes.
And President Sandy.
No, thank you.
All right, 5-2, motion is approved. Thank you.
5.12, Ultra Indoor Sports and Aquatics Complex Architect of Record, Project 8824.01.
Mr. Mayor, if I'd like to have same conflict of interest.
Yep, and I believe this one, I think we've very clear, so we'll, I think this would be my recommendation, as the city attorney's recommendation, to allow Mr. Kafami to be recused from voting on this item. But we will follow the same process, so the motion would be to allow you to vote with the intention of voting that down. So open that up and look for council to make a motion as such. So we got a motion from Mr. Weigel and a second from Ms. Osowski to allow Mr. Kavami to vote. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, that motion is defeated, so Mr. Kavami, you'd be recused from voting on this item. Mr. Phelan, why don't you just give us some of there's been some follow-up work done since last week. Give us some high points, and we'll see what further discussion ensues.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bochansky. Again, we had a good briefing on this. Council President Sandy asked me to follow up on some matters regarding the fee. I did follow up with JLG regarding their fee that goes through the schematic design. I do have a modified staff recommendation, and the recommendation is, originally it was a 7.25% fee, and now it's at 6.9%, so that dollar amount's reflected in the council action. The other thing that I have done, I did reach out to colleagues at UND, Grand Forks Public Schools, and Grand Forks County regarding their various fees, and we talked about, size of a project, scope of project, complexity, all kind of runs into what the fees should be. I noted last week that generally this fee, my recommendation was between 6 and 8%. Again, now we're at 6.9 versus 7.25. I followed up with UND since they're probably most close to this type of facility. I have 4 comparables. When I got a recommendation back, their most close comparable, in their opinion, was the STEM and National Defense Project that they're working at. That's a $100 million plus project. So that was the recommendation they had as the most close. That's a 7.3% fee, and that's with Clark and Enerson and EAPC. So similar to us, they do have a national firm with a local and EAPC. We looked at the public schools, and you can see that where JLG has 2 of the projects at 5.5%, and Icon with the South Middle School, Valley Middle School is at 6.25. Schools are more like office buildings, not like an indoor sports facility or aquatic, so they're going to have a lower fee. And then I followed up with the county regarding the Grand Forks County juvenile expansion, and that fee is at 7.5% with Icon and regarding that particular project. I did also reach out to a third party that's not part of this process, was not part of this process from an architectural perspective. They gave me some advice on the various national standards in this case, and what they said is the indoor sports center part of this project leans more towards a 7% fee, where the aquatic complex part of it leans more to the 8% fee. So I think that if you look at the 7.25, that is roughly, I think if you looked at a $100 million project, I think the aquatics is estimated at around, I'm going to say around 30 million of that, and so the remaining 70 million was around the indoor. That's again plus or minus. So I think the 7.25 was fair. I also did reach out to Council President Sandy had me reach out to Williston and look at what that fee was. Williston built one of the first during the oil boom, kind of an indoor sports facility with courts, aquatics, and a fitness center. JLG is on that particular project. That was back in 2012, 2014 period. That was at a 7.25% too. That was a park district owned and operated project. So what we have in front of you, I think is fair and reasonable. I did, Council President Sandy and I have had this conversation too. I have included, at least in schematic design, all features of this project, and that includes the indoor sports and turf. It includes the courts, the pickleball, the aquatic. So that's that I'm going to say $108 to $9 million project to start with. And knowing that once we get to the end of schematic design, you will have to make a choice on what you want to edit at that point. But to start out with the entire project, knowing that we're going to hopefully move forward with a construction manager, we'll have some final estimates. Because once you get through schematic design and you start moving forward to final design, we will really want to make sure that we nail the schematic design, because you're going to move off on a project that likely won't shift too much. So a lot of pressure is on the schematic design portion of it. So that's our mindset moving forward. The mayor has asked me, let's try to do as much as we can in phase one of that project. So that's what we're trying to do, working both with the architect team and also with the construction manager if we should move forward in that vein too. So Mayor, that's the update at this point.
I guess I just got one quick follow-up question. So at what point, I mean, how tight are we going to be able to get to estimates when we have a chance to, we've got option one, option two, and then the base project. How close are we going to be on those numbers to knowing when we got to make that decision on which options we're going to include?
I think our goal should, that we really want to be as much as possible. This might be a little aggressive, if you will, but at least within 5% at the end, because that's the importance of bringing on the construction manager early in this process. So that's my recommendation to move forward so that they can get them as part of the estimating team right away on this particular project, so that number one, we don't think we can do a project we actually can do when we actually do get to final design, or we don't miss out on opportunities where we could have moved forward. So we're moving forward with the construction manager sooner rather than later. A lot of times a construction manager doesn't get brought in until 20 to 40% of design. And what we're planning to do is bring them in right away as part of the team, just for that very reason, Mayor Paczynski.
And we would expect that in the fall timeframe?
I think by August, we're going to be back here with a schematic design, with construction estimates. We also are going to have to bring, as the staff report mentions, we're going to have to bring through, some of the final sponsorship agreements. We're going to have to bring forward the agreement with the Grand Forks Park District to operate and maintain this facility. And then finally, Maureen, Mayor, and I, we've had some meetings with Baker Tilly and looking on the various financial alternatives on the bond side. We'll have that finalized too. So whatever that dollar amount, we'll have the way forward on that. Number one, or on the financial aspects, number one, we don't want to do anything that would ever impact our bond rating, so we're not going to do that. We want to make sure when we bond this project, we have plenty of comfort in that bond part of that. So we're really making sure we protect that. So you'll see that between now and August, We're just not going to drop that on August, but I would anticipate probably monthly updates in all those areas as we move forward with the project.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Open it up for questions, comments from council. Mr. Veen.
No, I appreciate the approach you're taking. I think one of the things you talked about is the scope, and you talked about a broader scope, if I read you right, and it would give us the most options. We would then have estimates for those options and then come back, and we then, as the council, will work to figure out what the final scope is going to be, again, based on preliminary design and the cost estimates that the CM would be able to deliver. One of the things that I found most recently is today's bidding climate is probably different than any I've ever experienced, especially with buildings, competition, shortage of labor, shortage of sometimes materials and supplies. So it's going to be critical, I think, that we have an early estimate to be able to understand what that is and what that impact will be, so we don't get a proposal to build something more than we can afford.
Yep.
So, and I think that's what you talked about, the broader scope. So there's a number of things that would be nice. I don't know if we can afford them, but let's find out if they can fit. Is that right?
You are correct. And ultimately, Mayor Buczynski and Councilmember, we may end up with some alternatives that we end up bidding, but we want to more narrow it as we move forward. Can we afford courts? Can we afford a track? If so, how much of that can we afford? Those are all the things we're going to be considering.
Yeah, and I think along with that, as we get the financing, it's not just what can we afford, but what future project, future needs might come into this bucket. So I think it's important to realize that too as we right-size the facility. But President Sandy.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Phelan, how did we get to $107 million? How do we come to that number?
Mayor Buczynski and Council President Sandy, as you recall, when we were doing our feasibility study, we went through that process of estimating what those values were. Then we also went out and asked for some third-party advice, both from construction managers and from local architects. And so that's the number we ended with when we got at the end of the feasibility study.
But isn't that also about as much as we can bond for? We can't bond for a whole lot more than that, right?
That's about, we probably
So who sold us a bill of goods at the maximum amount is what I'm trying to figure out. Why are we at the maximum rather than some other number?
I think when we went through, they're not tied together. I think we've looked at various bonding abilities. I would say generally from 90 to 110 million is what we looked at in the various scenarios at this point. But I think when we look forward to the sales tax, we carved out that certain portion, we'll say about a quarter of that, 3/4, for the Alaris Center for its long-term capital viability, and then either half was going to go towards this debt service and also setting aside capital reserve. So within that number, we always had that $90 to $100 million that we were thinking that we were going to bond for. Just as we worked through with Baker Tilly, there's some options that we have in front of us that would allow us to go above that $100 million with city council review and approval. But so we're still in and around there.
And I do think the nice thing is we were talking with the bond council is when you look at debt coverage, how much of the revenue is going to go to the debt, what's your coverage levels, they do not use any future growth of sales tax. It's basically what your sales tax is throughout the life of it.
Sure.
So, we've been at a run rate of around 5%, I think, in the last, it's been 10 years, last few years at least. Obviously, if that continues, you're in a much better position, but they're not looking at that. They're keeping it flat the entire time, and this is what your debt coverage is, the entire length of the bond. So I think it's a very conservative estimate. I'm not sure how they managed that in the past with the Alaris Center, but to me, they viewed it as a very conservative approach.
I would agree. That is a very conservative approach. That's really good to hear. I'm trying to, so again, I'm going to ask a technical question about the facility itself. I'm not an engineer or an estimator or an architect, but when we're talking essentially two different buildings, an aquatic center, and you said earlier today that the aquatic center is about $30 million. Recently, UND built the Fritz Pollard, which has an indoor turf facility and a track, and it sounds like it's very similar to part of the building that we're going to build. I'm trying to figure out how we get to $70 million when I think they were in the $20 million range for their facility. And again, perhaps that's a rhetorical question. Ultimately, where I'm trying to go with this is, I'm not convinced that how do I put this the right way? Because I don't think anyone's doing anything wrong. So make sure that, I don't think that anyone has any bad intentions, or whether it's us, the council, administration, our architect design team, I don't think the intention is bad. I'm just wondering if we couldn't say, how about we design an $80 million facility, and they go to design to that dollar amount? Perhaps, I think architects and engineers really like to architect and engineer, and often will create magical places because they have money to do so, rather than utilitarian places that meet the needs of the community and don't cost so much money. So I would like to, personally, I'm all for this facility. I think it's a great project. I was supportive of it when we went into the vote. I want to not spend everything that we are going to bring in, because I don't want, for example, another Alaris Center where we get into something and we have to go back, and now we have to ask for more money to get it finished. We also have made commitments locally to, for example, the Children's Museum, that they're still $20 million short. And I'm not saying that we should be ponying it up $20 million, because they've got a lot of work to do, and I think they will continue, but they might need a little bit more. We also know that there's $500,000, we're going to be short $500,000 on the operational finances of the facility, or at least that's what was presented to us. 250 for the court facility, 250 for aquatics. We're short annually. So I don't think it's right of our city council to spend all the money that we have and then lump the project on the park district and make them have to raise taxes in order to cover the operating costs. So I'm going to support the project, Mayor. I will question whether we shouldn't go back to the 7.25%, because I don't know if the things that JLG is taking out of the scope, if we actually need them. If they're just taking them out and then they're going to change order us and we're going to pay them for them anyway, why would we do that? So anyway, that's all of the junk that's rattling around in my head.
No, I think those are all good points. We're still working on some sponsors, similar to the sponsorship for Alaris that's going to go to capital. We're working on sponsorships that's going to help cover the operations. I think the beauty of this project versus a Fargo project, the city took this on, found a way to fund it without going to property tax. If you look at the Fargo facility, the Park District raised 8.73 mils and put $14 million of the reserves into it. So they were the significant contributor to that, and that's going to have a major impact on property tax going forward in Fargo as we have this conversation next year, and Ms. Lazur comes up and shows the numbers on our city versus theirs. So I think that's the beauty in the city stepping up and finding, but that's having the financial freedom that the city has by making good decisions. We've seen other entities struggle with, funding different capital projects, and I think we have to be grateful that, we found ways to do it without impacting the property tax and ultimately, benefiting property tax in the long run by bringing more growth into the community.
I believe that, for example, we could build a new library in our community for 25 million or for 110 million. We could do that. I'm just not sure which is the right thing to do. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm getting at.
We'll let them do the Teddy Roosevelt Museum or Library out west. We'll just keep that one away from here.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have to say.
All right, Mr. Veen.
If I could, I respond. I think, Dana, exactly what you're asking for is what we get. When you look at the broader scope, and then you look at what the true cost is, that we can then scale it to whatever we want. But to arbitrarily scale it first before you know what you're going to get, we might shortchange ourselves. So I think this process really kind of ideally does that. And I do agree with you on the percentage. When you negotiate a percentage, what I'm afraid of is what aren't you getting when you don't do it, but you also don't want to overpay them. So where is the sweet spot? I mean, I don't know if there's a way to determine that exactly, but a lot of that percentage should be based on scope of service. What are the services that they're going to deliver, and what's the cost to deliver that? Don't over-scope it or under-scope it is probably what I would say.
Well, I think if you guys are okay, Mr. Davidson, if you want to come up and just let us know that we're going to be able to scope this and get the best project with the best value engineering at 6.9%, love to hear that.
Yep, no, I appreciate it, Mayor, and thank you, council members. So you're exactly right, Councilmember Veen, is that we really tailor our fee to the services provided. And so when we look at what we provided originally, it's what we feel are the services necessary to execute the project at the level we need to. And so when we looked at the 725, there are things in there that we had that we know we're going to need, such as acoustical engineering, such as AV engineering that's going to come up for the competition venues of the facility. However, we don't need that right now at schematic design. And so we were able to tailor the fee down to not include those this time so that we're able to find a amicable fee that gets us what we need to get done through schematic design to determine the size of the project, the cost of the project and the program, right sizing the project is how we call it. So that's how we were willing to work with the city on what makes sense now and what fee makes sense with those services. It's all about tailoring the services and the fee together. Does that make sense? To answer your question?
I think we put ourselves in a very difficult position when we don't bring council members in early in the discussions, and so that we can have discussions prior to becoming public, because it becomes very hard for them to negotiate when they've already told us what our fee, what their fee is. So that's not your fault. I do appreciate it, though. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, council member.
And I think when we get done with schematic design, we'll know what the project is. We're going to move forward with final design. You'll be back in front of you looking at that current agreement, what we're going to bond. We really will have a project that we all know what we're moving forward with at that point in time. So if you give us like 4 months, we'll be back here and the council will make a final determination.
All right, thank you, Mr. Phelan. Any further discussion?
Just one last, again, Mr. Veen, I can't argue philosophically, I agree with you. I don't know their design process, right? And so when you say we're going to start here and we'll be able to weed it down, perhaps we will. But perhaps if they go into it with the concept of we need to get all of this for $80 million, they can design and give us everything we want for 80 versus, okay, here's a $110 million project. Now we have to cut out the basketball courts when they might have been able to fit it in at for the right amount of money in the first place. That's where I struggle with it. But I don't necessarily think I'm right or you're wrong. That's where I think about it. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. Thank you. Ms. Osowski, please.
I agree with everything Dana just said. I'm really nervous about just putting us in a position where we just have another Alara Center and we're going to have to go back to the tax base. I think we need to be really careful. I can't afford my taxes, and I'm sure other people don't want their taxes going up either, so.
All right, thank you, Ms. Osowski. Any further comments or motions?
I'll move approval.
Got a motion to approve for Mr. Weigel, second for Mr. Veen. Further discussion? President Sandy.
So, again, we were talking scope of service, and they provided us a scope, and he got up there and told us that everything that they've cut out in order to reduce the fee, they're going to come back and ask us to pay for later. Does that make any sense? I don't know if that makes sense. So,
I guess, help us understand. Some of these services, obviously if your scoping is different, it's going to change what those costs are, rather than paying for them up front, waiting until we know that we need them.
No, and to clarify too, these are services that we would recommend. These are not services you necessarily have to take. And so our job as architects is to inform, to help you guys make informed decisions. Simple as that. And so when we come down to those decisions, such as, I'm going to use two examples again, acoustical engineering and audiovisual engineering, those are services that will most likely be needed on a facility like this. Look at the natatorium, look at the turf and track, and what we're going to have to do there for doing an acoustical analysis, right, that we have to make sure to get that right so it's the best environment from a competition spectator standpoint. Now, we can recommend that. Those are services we can provide. However, they aren't not necessarily something you have to take, and if there's other means you want to go about that, that's your choice too as well. So when we come to services we provide, we look at the scope of the project, and we recommend what we think we're going to need for that, and then we tailor that fee to that.
So if I could, I think, like I said, I think actually we're thinking a lot alike on this one. Do you make the decision now, or do you wait to see what the product is and then make the decision? Because I was interpreting that it isn't that we're saying no to that, we're just saying no right now.
Right, you're right.
And then we'd come back.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, Mr. Weigel.
I know typically when we look at some of these projects, the prices never go down on any project that the city is involved in, whether it's the bike path or the cost of purchasing new police cars. I'm assuming the price when we come back later and ask you to do this, because more than likely we're going to want it, the price isn't going to be the same price. It's probably going to go up. Am I wrong?
Our fee go up, or talking about the cost of construction, talk the project go
fee.
up?
Your
The fee is set at that percentage.
Okay.
And then what happens is the fee gets fixed. Once the CMR puts out a GMP, the guaranteed maximum price, at a certain point in time, and you as a city approve that and select that, our fee is fixed moving forward. So no, it doesn't go up. Our fee is based off of the cost of construction.
Does not putting that in there right now put us behind it all?
It is put into the agreement.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
What you're asking for is in the agreement currently, as far as our percentage
Yep.
and then what it's tied to and when it becomes fixed.
I think we're going to be back here after schematic design in August, and we're going to start looking at final design. We're going to have estimates at that point, and likely we'll have to look at that agreement as we move forward. But
I think Danny was talking about the acoustical engineering and the other
Yes.
engineering. He's worried that the price is ultimately going to be higher if we wait a year and a half.
But our fee will only go up as negotiated for that specific service. Our percentage doesn't change.
Right, but
yeah.
Danny's assuming you are cutting out some percentage today that relates to a dollar value for providing that service. The question is that
Correct.
dollar value for providing that service going to be higher
Correct.
in a year and a half?
Could be lower, not necessarily, because we have to determine what the scope of the project is.
Okay.
So,
I think if you're also looking at, obviously, these firms generally, their hourly rates go up every year, if you will, but we're going to be back here in August, taking a look at what the project looks like going to final design. We'll be able to make more fine, detailed determinations at that point in time. We're certainly not going to build a facility where you can't hear in the aquatic center, you can't hear in that. But I think for right now, those elements will come through here in August, and we'll have a better idea what that scope is when we go to final design.
I appreciate that, Mr. Phelan. I don't know that these prices ever go down. I've never seen a city project where engineering prices or anything else along those lines go down. So I'm worried that, sure, we cut it out today, we feel good for a little while because we're saving a little bit of money, but come August, we're right back to where we were, and that price didn't go down. I guess I'd be curious on other people's thoughts.
Well, I think if you look at the total cost of the project right now and you're taking off a 0.35%, let's just say it's a $100 million project. So 0.35, 35 basis points is going to be $350,000. I'd rather start, if that's not needed now, I'd rather start at 6.9 and segment up rather than just staying at 7.25 and, going nowhere from there. So I think at this point, we're in a good spot, and we know that that's kind of the range that we need to get those services within. And we'll know at that point if we've either saved money or lost money. But I would rather negotiate that up rather than, starting there and trying to negotiate down later, if that makes sense.
It's $375,000 is the number that they came down from
If you go to
7.25 to
107,
6.9.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yeah, Mr. Weber, please.
there's a number of curious analogies going around. One suggests that the best way to get a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house is to start by building a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and then it'll be cheaper to add the extra bedrooms and bath later on. The other one is suggesting that if I hold off on buying a house today, as long as I'm not the city, the price is somehow going to go down. Prices continue to go up generally in construction, and I don't think that this is a unique problem for the city. So I'm hoping that we build a facility that 20, 30, 40 years from now, we're still proud of as a community, and we're looking back and saying, wow, they did a great job when they put this together, rather than thinking, why did they cheap it out on this or that, and now we've got kind of a less than a quality facility. So I'm ready to move forward with the vote. I'll move in favor, please.
All right.
We already have a
There's-
motion and a second.
Yeah.
We already have a
The
motion.
question,
Very good,
Mr. Weber?
thanks. Sure, thank you.
All right, well, we've got a motion, a second.
Okay.
Any last comments?
Yeah,
Mr.
I want to make just one quick comment when you made the comparison, somebody made the comparison to the Alaris Center. The history behind the Alaris Center was we had an architect who came in and said, we can do that for $49,900. And so everybody voted and thought that we were getting a Alaris Center for $49,900. When we got into doing exactly what we did, we looked at the scope and then had somebody price it. It was $16 million more at that time. So therefore, trying to define amount right now, I don't want to make the same mistake. Let us just do the process that we've got. But in defense of what happened before, it was because somebody dictated a price without having the supporting documents for what before what that scope really was intended for. So.
Thank you, Mr. Veen. All right, seeing no further discussion, I'm going to hold the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously with Mr. Kavami recused. That's it for action items. We'll move on to item 6, information items.
6.1, investment portfolio as of March 31st.
Thank you. And item 7, approval of minutes and bills.
7.1 is the vendor list as is attached.
Got a motion to approve the vendors list. Got a motion, Mr. Weigel, second from President Sandy. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And 7.2, minutes from December 4th.
All right, a motion to accept minutes as is, or any changes? As is from President Sandy, second from Ms. Lunsky. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 8, citizen comments of general nature. Any comments this evening, Ms. Lundmark? No comments. We'll move on to item 9, city administrator comments. Mr. Phelan, any comments this evening?
Yeah, I have a few. Up at the upcoming COW, I just want to give you a highlight. Al Grasser is going to give his street project update, and we have some major projects going to start probably within the next week or so. So he's going to give you an overview. There will be some, obviously traffic issues with new projects, but he'll be prepared to show you some maps and some issues that may come, so your situation will air on Monday. The other thing I wanted to update, and Council Member Osowski's on the Board of Health, but also in front of you will be a transition of the social detox. It's operation to the Housing Authority, and so there'll be a discussion on that transition. It went through the Board of Health, and it'll be at the Committee of the Whole on Monday, so there'll be further discussion on that issue. And then Al's going to present on the south end drainage, and we've invested a significant amount of money on the south end drainage and how we're going to grow and develop to the south and to the west of Grand Forks. So there'll be a significant presentation in that vein. It is going to speak a lot of the future of Grand Forks and how we're going to develop and the kinds of money we're going to have to invest as we grow further south and west. So that'll be a really important presentation. And then finally, in May, Mayor Buczynski and we've been working with Councilmember V on the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. We anticipate a project update in May on that particular project as we move forward with the legislative session. And we're really at a critical junction in that project with a final agreement on how we're going to own, operate, and manage that particular project. So those are some of the major projects that are coming your way. So thanks for everything for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. All right, what item we got here? Move on to 10, mayor and council member comments. Mr. Weigel, any comments this evening?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Osowski, any comments?
No, thank you, Mayor.
All right, Ms. Lunsky? Mr. Kravami?
No, thank you.
Mr. Veen?
No, thank you.
Vice President Weber?
Briefly, if I may, Mr. Mayor, it was recently announced that Representative Corey Mock will not be running for re-election. And I just wanted to take a moment to recognize Representative Mock's long-standing service to our community as a representative in District 18, kind of the heart of Grand Forks. He's been in the legislature since 2009, was serving on 2 appropriations committees, helping to bring state dollars to projects in our community, and has long been respected as a bridge. We are still a 2-party state, and he had the respect of both sides of the House, and was especially well known for his knowledge of rules. something that all members often came to Representative Mock for counsel on. So thank you, Representative Corey Mock, for all of your service to our community and all the good that you've done over these years. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Weber. President Sandy, comments this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking forward to seeing those conceptual designs and figuring out what we can cut out to get to an $80 million project, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. As to my comments, I just wanted to point out the county is tomorrow going to go over their plan for the Sheriff's Department. We did have some staff that sat in their meeting, I believe it was a Friday meeting. It does sound like in the end, we might get a really great deal as a city. We might be able to stay there and not have to pay, which would be phenomenal. And the county is trying to find that sweet spot where they won't have to go to a referendum. We've also heard that they do not want to use the current county office building, so they want to expand their footprint and are looking at either a new facility or expanding to a new site that they'd have to remodel. So I don't know that that's, we talk about property tax and how we can collectively lower them. If the city is able to keep ours low, but the other entities are increasing, that really doesn't benefit the taxpayer a whole lot unless we're all doing it together. So I don't know for sure that that's the most financially beneficial route, but we've given them options, and we'll have, I think, an update at the next council meeting after we hear the result of their meeting tomorrow. So that's the update as we decide what to do with public health. So.
Well, Mayor, the county their committee did move to take the least expensive option for the Sheriff's Department off the table, right?
That's correct.
Their committee has decided that they don't want the Sheriff's Department to actually move into the public health building that they already own and operate.
That's my understanding, yes.
Low-hanging fruit. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, President Sandy. That's all I have for comments. We're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Adjournment.
Ms. Osowski motions. Do we have a second? Anybody want to? I'm going to give it to Mr. Weigel caught me first. So second by Mr. Weigel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned.